Hey, my name is Ray and you're watching Ray Books. Today's video is going to be the 13th installment in my currently checked out series. If you're new to my channel and you've never seen any of my currently checked out videos before, essentially the purpose of this series is to raise awareness about the different types of resources that public libraries provide. I live in San Francisco, so the San Francisco Public Library is the library system I utilize the most often. However, I also utilize other library systems throughout California. At the end of each video, I'll be giving you guys a price tally of how much money I saved by using the resources available to me through my local public libraries. This week, I didn't go so ham on the books like I did last week. I think I only have 5 physical items checked out and 1 digital resource that I used, so let's just talk about them. The first item that I have checked out is Aria by Nazanine Hozar. I have been trying to broaden my fiction reading. Eventually I'll get around to my nonfiction. And I realized that I really have not read that many books that are centered in the Middle East. So I'm kind of on a little bit of a Middle Eastern, Northern Africa kick. So if you have any recommendations on books set in those areas, just leave them in the comments down below. I would greatly appreciate it. Anywho, back to this book in question. Aria is about, well, the title character Aria, who is a blue-eyed orphan found in a back alley and adopted by a bus driver. Her life is essentially shaped by the 3 women who treat her with various degrees of niceness and cruelty, along with her budding romance with a boy who is on the wrong side of the revolution. I also believe this book takes place in 1953 at the start of the Iranian Revolution, and the city in which it takes place in is in Tehran, which is the capital of Iran, I think. I hope I got that right. One of the things that I noticed when I was reading the reviews for this book is that several people had pointed out that there are a lot of historical inaccuracies within the book. And I'm curious to know whether me knowing the historical inaccuracies beforehand will motivate me to go and research what was actually happening during the time and in the particular region. I haven't done much research about Iran. I haven't looked into the Middle East much beyond the Crusades because I was a medieval history major. So I'm pretty interested to see how reading this book is going to affect my historical interests. The second book that I have checked out is Jack by Connie Willis. This one is the result of last week's novella search, in which I told you guys that I'm in the mood for short stories but not short story anthologies, so I decided to just kind of play around and see what types of novellas that I like. Jack takes place in London at the height of the Blitz and follows a group of soldiers. There's one soldier in particular named Jack who has an uncanny ability to find living bodies buried underneath the rubble of the airstrikes. Both Goodreads and the library have this tagged as paranormal and horror, so I'm looking forward to reading it. I read a little bit of a spoiler. I'm not going to spoil it here, but I am excited. I'm excited to see how this story unfolds. The next book that I have checked out is The Bone Shard Daughter by Andrea Stewart. I saw this one on Goodreads in their Fall's Big Fantasy Authors, or what is it? I think it's Fall's Big Fantasy Authors article, and it seemed pretty interesting. The article made it seem as if it follows a medley of different characters, and I do love a fantasy novel that follows a medley of different characters. And I also love a fantasy novel that's set in an Asian setting, which this one is in. Basically, the story is following a heir to the throne who is kind of fighting to earn her throne because her father doesn't want to pass it down to her, a good-hearted smuggler, a lesbian couple, and I believe some girl who is stuck on a remote island who has no clue what she is doing there. The only thing that gives me pause to this novel is that the magic system is based on computer programming. And I'm not big on computer programming, and I'm also not big on fantasy that combines technology with fantasy. I'm kind of more like a a pure fantasy type of person, but I'm hoping that I will enjoy it because it does sound pretty gosh darn interesting. The next thing that I have currently checked out is A Deadly Education by Naomi Novik. I have been trying to get into her novels for a while. I don't know why I haven't, but I was originally thinking of starting her, what are they called? That series that starts with a T. I keep wanting to say the Tremaine series, and I know it's not Tremaine. What is it? Temenaire? Her Temenaire series, because it is like dragons on it, and I love dragons, so I was like, oh, I'll start with that. But obviously that's not what happened. This book was also mentioned in the Fall's Big Fantasy Authors article that I read on Goodreads, and I figured might as well start there. It's her most recent work, so it probably shows her most recent developments as an author. The story features a magic school that will not let students leave until they either graduate or die, and there are a ton of monsters roaming around the school which are killing the students. There is a girl named Elle who apparently is incredibly OP'd, and she has the power to kill all the monsters, but in doing so she would also kill all of the students. Both Goodreads and Bibliocommons, the library catalog, have this tagged as YA, which makes me pretty nervous. I'm gonna keep it real with you guys. I ended up DNFing Legendborn at about 96 pages. I've come to realize that the YA narrative it isn't for me right now. And I'm a little bit nervous about reading another YA book after DNFing one that I was looking forward to reading so much, but I'm keeping my fingers crossed that the promise of a magic school will keep me engaged and interested in reading this one. The last book that I have checked out is Mademoiselle Boleyn by Robin Maxwell. Anne Boleyn is one of my all-time favorite historical figures, and she is one of the main reasons as to why I decided to pursue an undergraduate degree in medieval history. Basically, this story takes place in the French court, and Anne Boleyn is about 9 years old. I have not read much historical fiction that's focused on Anne Boleyn's younger years, and I'm incredibly excited to see what Robin Maxwell does with the story, if she's going to introduce Leonardo da Vinci, because he was at the French court the same time that Anne Boleyn was at the French court. I'm interested to see how she's going to have a younger Anne watch her sister Mary fall into this kind of relationship with the King of France. I'm just really interested to see where Robin Maxwell takes this book and what her story is going to look like through the eyes of a 9-year-old, because that is how old Anne Boleyn is when she enters the French court. So fingers crossed that I enjoy this one, because I recently read Alison Weir's A King's Obsession, and I did not enjoy that. I did not enjoy that one at all. But fingers crossed I enjoy this one. And the last thing that I've used from the public library in this past week is the New York Times. So through the San Francisco Public Library, I can get 72-hour uninterrupted access to the New York Times. At the end of those 72 hours, all I have to do is just go back, redeem another code, and I'm back in for another 72. I'll leave a link in the description box down below explaining how that works. If you do live in San Francisco and have a San Francisco Public Library card, or if you just live in California, I would strongly recommend checking it out. And I would also strongly recommend checking out to see if your library also offers similar access to the New York Times. I know that I've mentioned on this channel before that I'm not a huge news person. I absolutely hate watching the news, but I'm okay with reading the news to a degree. I don't like reading like the Cron 4 news article things with like all of the links and the weird videos and all the clickbait. Like, I don't like reading those types of things. So I figured it would be kind of good for me to get into reading a adult newspaper. I don't know what to call it. A big kid newspaper. So I decided to give the New York Times a shot, and I'm pretty sure I've done this before, but I just can't remember why or when. Anywho, basically, I did not know how many different topics are covered in the New York Times. I have been stalking the real estate, the books, and the arts sections and a little bit of the cooking section. But what really caught my attention this week was an article called Queen's Gambit Makes Us Want to Throw Out Our Leggings. And that article actually has inspired me to watch the Netflix series, which I'm on episode 6, I believe, and I absolutely love it. And also request the book from the library because I didn't know that the show was based on a book, and the costumes in this show are so beautiful and so amazing. So big up to the New York Times for putting me on game. How much money did I save this week? I ended up saving $142.59. And that's because for some reason, Jack is an incredibly expensive book, and no matter where I looked, it was $40, which it's so short for $40. I don't know why it's $40. Hopefully when I read it, I'll find out why it's $40. And my questions for you guys this week are, of course, what do you currently have checked out from your local public library? If you don't have anything checked out, what are you currently reading? And if you feel like answering a bonus question, what is your opinion on mainstream news? And where do you usually get your news from? If you enjoyed watching this video, please give it a thumbs up. It does help me out with the YouTube algorithm. And if you ever want to hear or see me babble about books ever again, please hit that subscribe button. It really does mean the world to me. I hope everyone is having a wonderful day and reading wonderful books, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!